People don't know what consequences are until they get some. My name's Maya, and I've learned the hard way that people in America often confuse kindness with weakness. They think they can lie, cheat, borrow, and manipulate without ever paying the price. For a long time, I let it slide. I told myself I was too busy to fight every battle, that silence was easier than conflict. But silence only feeds their arrogance. Eventually, they learn if someone like me decides it's time they finally meet consequences. This is the story of how I made sure of it. The beginning of it all. I work in interior design restaurants, cafes, homes, you name it. I'm not famous, not on some glossy magazine cover, but in my city, people know me. I take dead, lifeless spaces and breathe new energy into them. I've been in the game 10 years, and every year I climbed higher by grinding while others partied. That's when they noticed me. Jack, Clara, Eli. They weren't my friends, though they liked to act like they were. Jack was the kind of man who could sell air if he wrapped it in confidence. He had that salesman swagger, the one that fools people until they notice the rot underneath. Clara was the socialite wannabe, living champagne dreams on a beer budget, always showing off on Instagram, forever between big projects. Eli, meanwhile, was venom in human form. He didn't need to raise his voice. A few sly words, a sarcastic comment, and he could ruin someone's reputation. Together, they became a storm I never asked for. The first time I felt it, I was at a dinner party. Jack stood, wine glass in hand, spinning some tale about how he connected me with one of my biggest clients. Everyone laughed, toasted him, called him a genius. I sat there smiling through clenched teeth because it wasn't true. I had landed that client through years of grinding and a perfectly timed cold email. But in that moment, Jack stole my hard work like it was nothing. Clara's betrayals were subtler. She started small, borrowing money here and there. $100 because her card glitched, $200 because rent was late. Every time she swore she'd pay me back. Then I'd scroll Instagram and see her at rooftop bars, wearing dresses that cost more than my car payment. I wanted to call her out, but part of me thought, don't make enemies. Keep the peace. Eli was worse. He didn't want money. He wanted to tarnish. He spread whispers that my projects cut corners, that my style was nothing but cheap tricks. I heard it secondhand from clients, and it stung because credibility is everything in my field. And credibility is exactly what Eli wanted to strip from me. The bruises stacked up. Not physical, but the kind you carry in silence. The weight on your chest when you can't sleep. The bitterness that creeps in when you bite your tongue one too many times. And then came the moment that pushed me over the edge. The cafe project. I'd landed a project for a trendy new cafe downtown. The owner gave me free rein. I poured myself into that space. Hand-picked fixtures, warm lighting, textures that balanced modern and rustic. When it opened, the reviews were glowing. Even the local paper featured it, naming me as the designer. Jack couldn't stand it. He started telling people it had been his idea to introduce me to the cafe owner. He claimed credit for my design, hinting he had played a bigger role. The problem? He was loud enough that people almost believed him, until they opened the paper and saw my name in bold print. That was the first time the tables turned. For once, Jack's confidence cracked. People started to look at him sideways. First consequence delivered, but I wasn't satisfied yet. Clara gets exposed. Clara came knocking again. This time it was $500, said she was short on rent. I lent it, knowing deep down I'd never see it again. 2 weeks later, she was posting Instagram stories from Las Vegas, cocktail in hand, designer heels flashing in the background. When I asked about the money, she laughed. Relax, Maya. You make way more than me. That was the last straw. I took screenshots of her messages begging for money, screenshots of her Vegas trip, tagged with living my best life. Then I printed them and pinned them on the community bulletin board at our gym, right next to her networking workshop flyer. People saw. They whispered. They laughed. By the end of the week, Clara shoved an envelope into my hand, face red, muttering that I didn't have to go so far. Second consequence delivered. Kashash Eli's fall. Eli thought he was clever. He whispered to a client of mine that my designs were overpriced copies of Pinterest ideas, that I used cheap wood, fake marble. One client almost dropped me. Almost. Instead, I invited them to my office. I laid out invoices, supplier contracts, proof of every material. I even had the contractor call in to confirm my quality. The client's face changed as the truth unfolded. Eli's words crumbled like the lies they were. The fallout spread fast. Eli's girlfriend, who worked in real estate, stopped inviting him to her professional mixers. His circle shrank. Nobody likes being associated with a liar. Third consequence delivered. But the real play hadn't even started. The breaking point. See, the one who suffered most wasn't me. It was Henry. Henry was a quiet man, older, worked at the credit union. He walked with a limp, but he never let it slow him down. He had helped all three of them at some point, loaning Jack money, co-signing Clara's car lease, even defending Eli at work when rumors flew, and every single one of them betrayed him. They took from him, mocked him, left him hanging. One night, Henry came to me with a folder. Inside were IOUs, unpaid debts, messages of promises broken. His hands trembled as he showed me. "I just wanted friends," he said softly. "But friends don't do this." That was when I knew. It wasn't enough for me to get justice. Henry needed it too. The Exhibit of Truth. I organized a community art night at the local center. Theme: Things Lent, Things Returned. I told people it would be a mixed media exhibit about relationships and accountability. What they didn't know was that the exhibits were Henry's debts and mine. One wall displayed blown-up screenshots of Clara's loan requests, paired with her Vegas selfies. Another wall featured Jack's empty promises next to the article crediting me for the cafe. Eli's section had his lies printed in bold, alongside contracts disproving them. At the center, framed like art, were Henry's IOUs, every broken promise signed in ink. People gasped, they whispered. Then Henry stood before them all and read from a single sheet. I kept quiet because I wanted to believe in people, but silence lets them take more. I won't be silent anymore. The room went dead quiet. Then, slowly, the tide turned. Jack shifted uncomfortably. Clara looked ready to cry. Eli avoided everyone's gaze. By the next week, Jack was paying back what he owed. Clara's reputation was trashed. Her networking events dried up. Eli found doors closing where they used to open. The long fallout. But here's the thing about consequences. They don't just happen once. They echo. Jack lost his big chance when a restaurant he pitched turned him down, citing trust concerns. Word spreads fast in American cities, and even faster in tight-knit industries. His swagger became a hollow act. People started avoiding his calls. Clara's Instagram persona crumbled. Her followers dropped when people realized her glitzy life was built on borrowed money and unpaid debts. She tried to pivot into self-help content, but the comments dragged her back to reality. She deleted her page within months. Eli tried to reinvent himself in a new circle, but reputations stick. Every room he entered, someone already knew. Eventually, he disappeared from the professional scene altogether. The Grant and the Garden. Months later, the city announced community improvement grants. Jack pitched a flashy sports bar. Clara pitched a boutique. Eli pitched a digital magazine. I pitched a reading garden. An abandoned lot turned into a green shared space. When the committee asked the neighborhood, the answers were unanimous. My name came with trust. Theirs came with skepticism. The grant went to me. By fall, the garden was open. Lanterns glowed in the evenings. Kids read comics on benches. Couples strolled hand in hand. Henry donated shelves of books. It wasn't just my garden, it was ours. The final confrontation. Weeks after the opening, Jack confronted me in the garden. He stood there, arms crossed, trying to regain that old confidence. "You didn't have to humiliate us, Maya. You could have just walked away." I looked at him, the lantern light catching the bitterness in his eyes. "You think humiliation is the worst part?" "No, Jack. The worst part is that you thought you could keep taking without giving anything back. That's what broke you, not me." Clara showed up once, too. She lingered by the garden's entrance, watching children laugh as they flipped through comic books. She didn't approach me. She just stared, maybe realizing that all her fake status never gave her anything real. Then she left. As for Eli, I heard he moved to another city. Maybe he's trying again there. Maybe he'll finally learn, or maybe he'll just burn more bridges. My lesson. I sit in that garden some nights, watching the lights sway in the wind, and I think about how far it all went. People don't know what consequences are until they finally get some. And once they do, they move differently. They tread carefully. That was my revenge. not destruction, not cruelty, just balance, just the simple truth that actions have weight and eventually they land where they belong, and I made sure of it. Months later, a young woman approached me in the garden. She was nervous, clutching a sketchbook. "You're Maya, right? The designer?" I just wanted to say, "Your story inspired me. I used to let people walk all over me, but now I set boundaries." I smiled because that was the real victory. Not Jack's downfall, not Clara's humiliation, not Eli's disappearance. It was showing others that silence isn't strength, that sometimes the loudest statement you can make is to finally, firmly say enough. And in that garden, with lanterns glowing and voices soft in the night, I realized something. Revenge wasn't about cruelty. It was about teaching, about restoring the balance, about making sure that people who never thought about consequences finally learned what it meant to face them. And if I had to, I'd do it all again. Like and subscribe, share if this happened to you or someone you know.